Welcome back. I thought I'd have a more in-depth look at the camera on the Vernee Mix 2 phone. I'm working on the review as we speak. This is a 13 and 5 megapixel camera with OIS and an f2 aperture on the back, and on the front we have an 8 megapixel front camera. But checking the sensor information, they're not big vendors on this. It's not a Sony or a Samsung sensor on there, but anyway, we'll proceed. Don't really care myself, I'm just interested in the results really. Now when you go into the app, it looks pretty similar to a lot of camera apps that I've seen, though I did note that it can get a bit laggy when you're trying to switch between the different modes that it offers here. You see there's a blur mode. We have a look at that a bit later on as we've got the dual cameras. I just find it a bit sluggish myself. The situation is not as bad if you directly select the mode yourself with a finger press on the screen, but scrolling it through can be a little bit annoying. You have some basic options on this, including image sizes, aspect ratio, not a whole bunch of in-depth options, which is okay. That's not really a problem. And on the top is your flash, and you can switch over to the front camera. Now when I've been using this app, I've had the phone now for quite some time, been using it for a significant amount of time just to try and get to grips with different areas of it and provide some feedback on it. I personally am not a fan of the built-in camera app. For me, it's just pretty sluggish. You have the Pro mode here, which isn't really the Lumia Pro modes. On those phones, you've got basic exposure compensation. You can adjust the white balance and ISO. It's not that in-depth. And when you use the front camera, you'll have to flip it around, and it doesn't flip the controls around either. So that's a bit of a letdown as well. A couple of other things with this, you do have a HDR mode as well, which is at the top. There isn't a whole bunch of options really, which is okay, that's fine. Most people just want to snap the picture, but the focus is pretty slow inside, so you're going to find that could be an issue for you. It's not too bad outside, it's acceptable, but inside quite slow, and there's very little options on the video recording. That's pretty basic stuff as well. So that's a basic overview of that. You can just flip out on the side here and it will give you some different filter effects. Pretty standard stuff. You get black and white, sepia tone, just different color modes just to sort of enhance things up a bit. I don't really use those much, but you can play around. What I suggest is trying is a different app. This is Open Camera, so it's free. There are other ones, some of them are ad supported and some of them you have to pay for. So personally, this really works much better than the standard app because it's just much more responsive. It just feels laggy, the app that they've included, and you've also got quite a few other options as well with this, which I'll just show you basic stuff in a while, but it's just quicker to take the pictures, so the focus is still fairly slow, particularly inside. You can go through your normal settings and change the ISO, etc., but you've got a lot more options, including quite a useful infinity focus, which will avoid any sort of focus hunting issues which can be present definitely on this camera. You also have dynamic range options, HDR, scene modes as well. Now it does seem maybe a little bit more complicated, but you can just customize it how you want. Whether or not you're going to use all of these options, probably not, but personally it's more about being able to take the picture and reasonably quickly and get half decent results. And as you can see with this, you can change video bitrate, etc. You just get better results with the open camera, but do experiment with different apps as well. It's a bit of a shame they haven't worked on the app. I think really they need to do an update on this to bring it up to scratch, but that's just my own personal view. Just a demonstration here showing you the AF speed indoors, which is pretty slow. You're looking at 2 or 3 seconds for it to focus sometimes, and it can get quite laggy. The display refresh is not the fastest I've seen, so that can also be annoying. In low light, it's okay outside. And this is the blur mode, which just basically puts a circle around the image, and then you can take a shot, and that's basically it. Bit disappointing on that. Once you have focused, you can adjust the exposure with the slider here. A lot of the apps now have that feature. It makes it just easy to quickly adjust the exposure compensation. This just shows you the lag indoors. If I'm in video mode as well, it's going to show up on the video unless you go into the settings and drop the exposure compensation down. It's trying to overexpose the image like a still photo, and it has to drop the frame rate to do that, so watch out for that. Now onto the photos. Outside in fairly good light, we've lost some highlight detail, but this picture came out pretty well. I don't think the sensor is bad. If we zoom in, it's a bit over sharpened. They're obviously over processing it a bit too much, but it's okay. This one shows you the blur circle, as I call it. and a normal shot, so it just bungs a circle around something, which works great if you're taking a circle image, but a lot of objects aren't. And this is a default camera app. We've got a sort of magenta tint, and compare it to the open camera, perhaps not perfect white balance, but definitely better. Going through some other pictures that I took now, HDR image, and then there's another one with the open camera app, so you can see that there are some differences between the two of them. And again, we've got that magenta tint. It's going to become quite annoying for you, I found, using it. It takes there's a shot with it out without the blur effect, but it takes a while to actually adjust. The white balance is pretty slow to update on this, so you could find a lot of your shots have that strong purple tint, which can be quite annoying. You can manually set the white balance yourself. And there's just some video clips now just to show you. This one didn't come out too bad. The OIS doesn't really seem to do that much. It maybe helps a little bit. As far as the details go, it's okay. But there's still, you know, the colour balance is still a bit off for my liking. And you'll see on the next shot, walking along, holding the phone, the OIS is kind of not really doing that much. It's maybe smoothing it out a little bit, any sort of sharp movements. So I wouldn't expect too much from the camera. And to be honest, I don't at this price point, but I was just a bit disappointed to see the shift in colour balance, because that's the most annoying thing. Now with the default camera app, you can get some okay shots like this. A bit dull, but it's not too bad, and you zoom in, the details are okay. Front camera takes passable shots, but not particularly good in low light, and it makes an image the size of the screen, which is non-standard, so nothing special there. You do tend to get fairly dull shots in low light. The LED flash does help, though perhaps a bit bright. The non-flash shots, they come out sort of washed out with quite a bit of noise reduction. So I didn't really expect a great performance indoors, but I was expecting something a bit better with the OIS, which doesn't really seem to help that much, which is a bit of a shame. And the lens blur effect is not particularly good at all. It just puts a circle around the subject, and it can look quite bad on some pictures such as this one. But what I'll do is upload some pictures so you can have a look for yourself. I am working on the full review, so you'll see how this will impact it. You can get at best passable shots with the right camera app. So do stick around for my full review, which is coming shortly, and thanks very much for watching.